Hey everybody, this is Jason Ostrowski, and welcome to another edition of the Everything Real Estate Podcast. In today's podcast, we're going to have a conversation with Jeff Scott from the Malvern office. Now, Jeff has been licensed since 2018 as a part-time agent, but really didn't start his full-time real estate career until February of 2021. And in that short period of time, Jeff has found great success. In fact, he has just closed his 22nd transaction for the year of 2022. That's not bad for being in real estate for just about a year and a half. So what drives Jeff's success? Well, he is what I consider to be the next generation realtor. And what I mean by that is I'm not talking about age. I'm talking about the way that he markets himself in a modern environment. You could also exchange the term next generation realtor with the modern realtor and what Jeff does to drive business his way and make him successful at an early point in his career. So let's get right into it with Jeff, and we'll pick it up on the other side. Jeff, how are you today?
I'm fantastic, and thank you so much for having me on.
Today, we're going to talk about kind of the next generation of realtors and what I mean, and I'm going to get into what I mean by that. But what struck me in our conversation is how you go about, number one, marketing your business, what you're all about when you're on social media or you're online, and kind of the authenticity that you give off. You haven't been in the business that long. You know, going back, you got your license in 2018, but you were kind of part-time. You admittedly so that you've done a couple transactions here and there, but you didn't really fully immerse yourself until 2020. So really, in all honesty, we're talking about a little over 2 years or so in the business in a pandemic to boot, right? So impressively, you just closed, I think, your 22nd transaction for the year, correct?
That's correct. Yep.
I mean,
and just a real quick, a shout out to Debbie McCabe, who gave me the microphone at that Breakfast of Champions that made me speak about doing videos, which spurred on our conversation. Real quick, it was actually 2021 February that I went full time. 22 transactions so far this year, 21 total last year. So it's been a quick growth for me, which has been exciting.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty amazing for someone that's so relatively new to the business. And so I want to get a background on you first. Let's start by telling our audience about your journey into real estate. What spurred it on? What were you doing prior to becoming a realtor? And also why you decided to go from, say, part-time in 2018, doing a few transactions a year, to going all in during a pandemic. What changed in your calculus about your career?
Yeah. So, I had just purchased my new home in 2018 and I sold my prior home. My realtor was my cousin, and, just kind of following along the transactions and getting a little bit of experience with the other realtor, I saw an opportunity to be able to bring my customer services to the industry and make an effect. So, as I saw that, I started working on my classes to get my license. In the car business, you're working long hours. So I'd be coming home at 9:30 at night and jump on my internet class for an hour and a half, 2 hours, studying, getting through that. I mean, it's not an easy course. It's 72 hours on top of trying to study for the test itself. So I saw an opportunity in the industry to maybe bring a little bit more of a professional sales to the industry. So that was really what spurred me to get it. Then, fast forward 2 years, I'm doing some part-time deals with friends and family, and I'm trying to do some marketing online, but not too serious. With having a full-time job, I was, director of sales for used cars. So, I had a 6-figure job. It was very comfortable. But the industry itself was tough on family. Again, I'm coming back to the nights. We worked holidays. You'd get off Christmas and then you'd be right back to it. So, the biggest thing that I thought of was an opportunity to have a little bit more family life and kind of control your own destiny as far as, the harder you work, the more you're going to make. So as I started to move along, had a little bit of success doing the part-time part. And I kind of hit a crossroads of like, okay, we're either going to move forward with real estate, or I'm just going to put it to the side and concentrate on the auto industry. So obviously, long talks with my wife, trying to figure out what makes sense. Ultimately, we decided to give real estate a shot. And, I will say it was not without heartache. After my last day at the dealership, I got into my car and I looked back at my two little girls' car seats, and I started to cry. Honestly, I'm not a tough guy. I won't not admit it. I started to cry just because of the unknown, and I have a family and bills and mortgage, and so it was scary, definitely scary. And we figured we'd give it about 6 to 8 months to see if I could get some momentum, and quickly figured out, the first 4 or 5 months I did $4 million in sales, and I was like, okay, well, I think this might work. I'm not too sure, but this is looking pretty good. So yeah, that was the big thing, is just kind of, we took a leap of faith to do it. In the auto industry, I had 12 years experience. I had a great resume. I had a lot of people working for me that enjoyed working for me, and I enjoyed working with them. So, it was with a heavy heart and a lot of knowledge that I left to the side to start something that I didn't know. And again, a substantial amount of money that I was leaving. So that was a big motivator for me to be able to replace that. So those that's the main story of how I got out and the beginning of it.
Yeah, and I think first of all, it takes a lot of guts. We have talked to people that have been in other professions before, where you're betting on yourself, right? You have a family, you have young children, you have your financial security to think about, and you're walking a tightrope without a net, right? And you're really going all in on what you're doing. That takes a huge amount of guts. And quite frankly, I don't know if I could have did that. I got into the business where I was coming from catering, and God knows I hated catering so bad that I remember taking the real estate classes while I was in catering, and I was like, I cannot wait to get away from this job. But it sounds like, you had a fondness for what you were doing before real estate, but it seems like a natural transition to go from sales in automotive to sales in real estate. It's a little bit different, obviously. You were saying that everybody who walks through the door seems like, they either hate car salesmen, or maybe they're adversarial to start, because they just don't have that level of trust with you until they get to know you, right? Real estate's a little bit different. So was the transition going into real estate a little bit easier sales wise for you than, say, car sales?
I don't know about easier. I kind of mentioned to you, my family's been in the auto industry since the 1920s. So, it's one of those things, it's just kind of in your DNA. When I first started, it just came so natural to me and was a natural fit. And when I went to family parties, I finally figured out what my dad and grandfather were talking about with all the numbers they're throwing around. So that was fun for me. But getting into real estate, I will say the natural part of it was the rapport building. We kind of touched on this, and I'm sure we'll talk a little bit later about it, but taking leads, meeting people that I've never met before, and they're going into an endeavor that's going to be one of the largest purchases of their life. They obviously want to trust the person and feel comfortable with them. So meeting somebody, getting a good rapport right off the bat is super important in both industries. So that was a natural transition. I would say the biggest difference between client and customer for real estate and automotive industry is, when that person was walking through the door, you were trying to figure out how much money you could make off that person. In real estate, I look at it way different as like, okay, this is customer service. I want this person to have a fantastic experience. I want to be trustworthy. I want to be knowledgeable and help them along the way. You're not looking at a dollar sign. I mean, obviously we have to make money, but ultimately we don't have much control over that. So just being able to help someone and build that trust was refreshing to me, to say the least.
Yeah, and I think that speaks also to your authenticity. And I keep going back to that, right? Because when we started talking, I immediately felt like I had known you for a number of years. We're sitting there talking for, I don't know, a good half hour. And you and I are kind of on the same wavelength. And one thing that we both particularly have a disdain for is anything that is salesy, right?
Yep.
That even though we are in sales, being overly aggressively sold to, or people coming off as really salesy, just kind of makes me cringe. And I want to talk about your mindset about how you want to run your business, because you think about these things. We have talked about that how you approach people in a profession that revolves around sales. What is your mindset? Like you said, you want to take on a client, and yes, we have to make money, but we're in basically the customer service industry, right? So how do you approach people? What makes you successful when you approach people and your kind of approach to doing real estate?
Yeah, I think it's just a natural trust between me and the client that originally starts with my first conversation saying, first off, I'm available 24/7. You have questions, concerns, comments, you text me, email me, phone call, whatever. I will get back to you within a reasonable amount of time, if not pick up right then and there. I say when we go into a house and we're looking at a house, I'm not one of those agents that's going to walk in and be like, oh my gosh, look how beautiful this kitchen is. This is this spot. I'm walking in there like an inspector, and I'm looking for anything that might be alarming, any kind of information that might be useful for them. And also that I'm treating them like family. You know, I'm going to suggest things as if you were my mom, my sister, my brother. And that is an automatic guard down for people. If they can feel that you're genuinely being authentic and care about their experience and making sure that they're making a sound investment, that goes a long, long way. So I'm not thrown in people's faces that, you have to buy something now and this is it. This is great. I love rates are still historically low. Listen, it's your decision. It's your money. You need to figure out if this is the right spot, the right money, the right interest rate, all that stuff. It all goes into it. So if they can tell that you're being genuine and not trying to shove something down their throat, essentially, as a salesperson, it goes a long way. And, the way that I look at it is that I just created a relationship that hopefully is going to last until I get out of this business in, 30, 40 years.
Yeah. And I think the most successful agents and those who really kind of excel with their clients long-term are the ones that sell without selling, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't need to sell. Is like you had talked about. If you have people's trust and they like you, then you don't need to worry about selling to anybody. They're going to be yours for life, and we just have to remind ourselves that that's what we should be doing in this business. All right. So I began this podcast by talking about, you remind me of kind of like the next generation realtor. And what I mean by that is that you have an incredibly strong presence online. I'm checking your Google reviews. I think you had 31 Google reviews, which is great. You're comfortable doing video. You're comfortable being on camera. I mean, you and me are doing this podcast and you look like you're I know people can't see you right now, but you look like you're extremely relaxed, like your feet could be up on the desk right now.
They aren't.
With your hands behind your back, you know what I mean? But you not only know how to navigate online stuff, your social media stuff in particular is really relevant, and you thrive there. You know what the latest trends are on social media, the memes, and you creatively use them to your advantage in your marketing online. So I believe that the next generation realtor is those types of realtors that excel online, right? They excel in their marketing there. They put the latest trends into good use, incorporate them into their business. And you have me saying all the time, why didn't I do that?
Yeah.
So why is the creation of good content so important to your business? And what works are, what are you trying to convey with who you are as a person to your clientele through the use of your creativity?
Yeah. I mean, so creating that content is, first off, just keeping you in front of your audience. To be pretty regular, I try and do something once a day. It's not always the easiest. You have a lot of stuff going on, especially when we have busier times. It's not the easiest thing to do, but just to stay relevant, I would say a lot of my reels are kind of geared towards humor rather than anything else. Obviously, in my sub caption, it's some kind of educational things, but the reel itself is humor, just to show that I'm a real person and, I can have fun. And I would say at the end of most of my transactions, my clients say I've had so much fun, and I feel like I'm a friend. Like I'm gonna like, can we still go see houses? Can we still hang out? One of my first clients ended up being my podiatrist, and I didn't realize it until I went for my appointment. He walked in. I was like, oh my God, I think I know you. Well, we've become really good friends. Both of our daughters now go to the same nanny. And, I've created so many relationships through the transactions. But going back to social media, just being a little bit lighthearted and, just bringing something that is more entertainment value than just a picture of something, or something. I do videos that are educational that I speak on, but the reels it just breaks it up and it's more entertaining. And like you said, you kind of jump on the latest trends, and the last few weeks I've had a couple of them go viral where it's over 25,000 views, which is a little unexpected. And then, the algorithm helps for that, and if it's the right music and all that. But I find it enjoyable to be able to create something that people laugh about. I get texts and messages all the time telling me how funny I am. It's so great. And, it's funny because when I do it and I'm about to post it, I'm like nervous that this is stupid. No one's going to like it, blah, blah. And I end up getting the best feedback. So yeah, I mean, and kind of going back to what you said, as far as the new agent style, when I first got into this, the beginning of 2021, it was the very beginning. All of a sudden, it was like a takeoff of like, all right, you have to be a social media agent in order to be successful. And I wasn't ready for it. I wasn't expecting it. But when you see a trend and something that is working and something that you need to do in order to be relevant, I just jumped on the train and went with it. I told a story at that Breakfast of Champions where we met about my first video. I'm doing it and I'm doing takes and I'm messing up and I'm cursing and I'm sweating. And my wife comes in the room. She's like, what are you freaking out about? It's just you. Just relax. It's just you. And like, as soon as she said it, it's like, you know what? I'm being so silly that I'm so worked up about this. So the comfort level was not there in the beginning, but as you do it more and more, the comfort level comes.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, even in doing this podcast, I don't know if I've mentioned this before on the podcast or not, but my wife sometimes will be upstairs and I record in my basement. I call it the dungeon down here, and the audio is good. And that's why I do it. But sometimes when I'm recording, I'm such a perfectionist with things that I'll stop and have to re-record stuff like 10 times over, and I'll be cursing and I'll be pounding my desk. And my wife's like, what are you doing? Like, you sound exactly the same 10 times you've been doing this. Why aren't you just going with it?
Right.
But I think, like you said, practice does make perfect in anything. Even if you're doing social media, you get in front of a video camera, it just becomes easier over time. And right now, quite frankly, we talked about this before. If you're not doing video in some kind of capacity in real estate, you're really missing the boat, because you really do need to be doing these things for your career. And you just have to look at it. Even if you hate doing it, it's a necessary evil to do right now. And your personality, really shines through when you do these things. And like you had said, you make friends. I think there's no better compliment than when your clients want to be friends with you, right? You're hanging out after the transaction, you're keeping in touch. There is no bigger compliment than that. And I can just see by your profile and going through everything, this is a guy I just want to hang out with. Like, he's just a cool guy. Like, he's doing really funny stuff.
Don't give me too much credit, but yeah.
No, I'm being very sincere about it. And I'm not surprised that some of your stuff goes viral, right? You had told me before we got on that I think you said your sister kind of has a social media marketing background and she gives you some kind of tips to do. So for everybody out there right now, you need to follow Jeff Scott's Instagram account and see what he's doing on there. You'll see what we're talking about. And I just want to talk further about what you put out, because is it organic? Like, do you just grab a phone and you're like, this would be just great? Or do you map things out? Is it intentionally done? Or do you wake up one day and you're like, you know what? I have an idea. I'm just going to go with this. Or do you try and say, I'm going to do 3 videos this week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. This is what I'm going to do.
Yeah, definitely try and do batches. Just that just makes it a whole lot easier to be able to get 4 or 5 loaded and ready to go as you go along. So if I don't have something to go under a contract or a review to post or something, I can do a video when I need to. kind of on the fly. And that's compliments to my sister, Emily Scott, because that's what she teaches is batches and get a month's worth of content ready to go. But it's not always that easy. And it's, as life goes, I think everybody who has, kids and family and schedules, and it's not that easy. And so when I can do it, I do it. And again, like you say, it's not something that I love. And I wake up and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to record something today. It's a labor of love. It's something that is necessary. I definitely enjoy the results. But I try and go through Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, see what's trending, see what's good. I have a couple of realtors that I follow that I've become pretty close with across the country. One in Texas, his name is Shane. He'll post something and I'll immediately message him and be like, oh my gosh, that's so great. Just so you know, I'm stealing that. So if you see it later today, don't be surprised. And he's great about it because we kind of go back and forth that way. So, just to get ideas, some of it is organic. Some of it I come up with my own. Some of it, I'm, just being forthright. I copy off other people, and that's kind of what it's about. And they're from other markets, but I don't see a ton of people doing what I'm doing in this market in Eastern Pennsylvania. So it has definitely helped me, set myself apart a little bit from everybody else in the crowd. But again, it's become a necessary thing in order to stay relevant, really.
Yeah. And you do a great job with it, but it's not the only thing that you do. So I do want to make clear, like, that's a big part of what you do, but that's not everything. And I want to get into the other things that you do, because again, getting that lift right away as a new agent in your career, right? Doing sales and being successful at it pretty much right away. You may have to do certain things as a newer agent. So can you talk about, some of the other things that you've done to become successful as quickly as you have become in your real estate career? What else are you doing besides the social media portion?
Sure. And, just to put that to scale as far as the success for that first year, as new to the industry, I had no idea if what I was accomplishing was like, that was a feat, or is this something that should be expected? So I always had to check in with friends that were kind of veterans and be like, hey, these are my numbers so far. Am I doing all right? Most people would be blown away. So
it's so funny. It's so funny that you mentioned that. I don't mean to cut you off. But my mother has been a manager in the company for a very long time. And I used to go to her all the time when I was a new agent, because I had no idea how I was doing. Mm-hmm. And I used to be like, am I doing good? Like, where do I stack up? I always wanted to know, because people will tell you I'm a numbers guy. So I know all my numbers, all that stuff. I just always wondered. And as a newer agent, I think that's a great point that you're making. We kind of don't know where we stack up a lot of times, So that's a great point that you're making. So anyway, go ahead.
But I forget your original question. What were we? Oh, the other tools to be successful. So when I first started, I got involved in OpCity, which is a tool of Realtor.com that provides leads. It's kind of a first come, first basis. It's an alert to your phone. First one to get to it, wins that lead, and you go from there. So that was one of my first experiences with outside sources besides my own sphere. And I got signed up with it before I was full time, and I saw all these coming through, and I'm working my full time job, and I'm like, man, I'd love to take that one. Oh man, I'd love to take that one. So in the back of my mind, I was like, okay, this is something that could help fuel my income until I can kind of get separated and organically bring my own leads in. So that was one thing. So Realtor.com, OpCity, and that's a back end tool. I'm not paying up front for leads. It's you pay once you sell and close the transaction. And then the other thing is Zillow Flex Lead, which is the same thing, just through Zillow. Both very different programs, but kind of the same thing. So having the experience of doing phone ups and taking raw leads in the auto industry really transitioned perfectly to this, because you're getting someone on the phone right away. And what do you have to do when you get someone on the phone right away? Create rapport, make them feel comfortable, make them feel like you know what you're talking about and that you're on their side. I have a whole phone worksheet. I got piles of them everywhere. Here's one right here. I got them all over the place. So I have them in my car, in my office, at home. So anytime that one pops up, I can grab it. I have the sheet right there in order to help me guide them through, figuring out exactly what they want to accomplish. And then, the prototypical, I have the Eagles schedule magnet that I send out that people love, and the Phillies. And so I stop by places I used to work or people that I know where they work and just kind of hand them out. So I've had a good amount of success with that. I mean, just walking into a place you used to be and start a conversation, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, it's like, oh yeah, my mom's about to sell her house. Could you just come over and give us a value? So, just easy transitions from there. And then we also talked about Reminder Media, which is the magazine, which is a very, very, in my opinion, very cool tool in order to send out a magazine that is not the hard sale. It has nothing to do with me trying to sell their home. It is just a nice magazine with some cool articles, and you get to personally pick the recipes. And, I told you that I get people text me being like, oh man, I just made the recipe you did on page number 6. It's great. I try and do one food and one cocktail because I think it's fun to kind of mix them up, but thought goes into it. But that has been fun just because that magazine sits in someone's house for a couple months, and it's appealing, it's nice. And again, it's a soft sale. It's not even really a sale. You're just trying to stay in front of their faces. So that's been another thing. So there are some traditional things, as well as just staying in front of your sphere. And that's part of the social media part. Circling back to that is just staying in front of people and staying relevant. And, people a lot of people in this industry say, oh, don't just post what you're selling and stuff. Well, you got to post what you're selling, because people first off, want to see the houses, and they want to see the locations that you can sell. And I grew up in the Lehigh Valley, and now I live in Chester County. Well, I want to help people from the Lehigh Valley just as much as I do Chester County. I'm willing to drive an hour and a half in order to help someone out. I've never had any prejudices as far as where people are. I also have my Delaware license. I help people in Delaware. So, I would say you have to have a good mix of social media presence, traditional marketing, and then just pure follow-up for yourself.
Yeah, you're speaking my language. I often talk about like the 3 tiers of marketing that you have to implement and mix them up. One is online, one is something tangible, like we talk about the magazine. It's something they can hold in their hands, they can see. And, whether that would be RSP mailers, whether that would be postcards, but something that they can hold. And then thirdly, like networking, right? Like you talk about just walking into places and talking to people. I think one of the things that sticks out to me about you is you remind me of another guest that we had on. I was telling you this, his name is Brad Daler. And Brad, before he got into real estate, was actually selling long distance MCI in college. And so he would cut his teeth basically on just, you get someone on the phone and you got to build that rapport right away. And that's critically important to what you do. So you talk about, the Zillow leads or OpCity through Realtor.com. Like you have to build that instant rapport. You have to kind of cut to the chase and do it in a way that's appealing to people right away. And it seems like both of you have done that successfully, and it's helped to build your business. And so, for those of you out there that are newer to the business and kind of, haven't had the chance to basically practice your craft, right? I would suggest whether it's scripts or practicing with someone that or a family member, but make sure that you have basically your spiel down, right? You have to talk to people in your own language, your own authentic language. I feel like goes such a long way in our business, and you have to know what to say and when to say it, right? And do it in a non-threatening manner. And I think that's one of the things that you do very well, Jeff, it sounds like, with your clients.
Yeah. And I think a big thing that new agents need to know too is not every style is the same, and not every style is going to work for you. You're going to have to find your niche of what works. Some people like to cold call and, knock on doors. I have a guy in this office, Ben Swavely. He goes with flowers to expired listings and tries to get his foot in the door, which I respect. It's just that's not my style. That's not what I like to do, but it's working for him and it's his style. So you really need to figure out after a couple months, like what you're finding success in, and kind of gravitate towards that and refine it and capitalize on what you can.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you 100%. All right. So now that you've been in the business a little while and you've found obviously success, what has surprised you about real estate, both good and bad?
Man, well, the good would be just the surprise of some people that you wouldn't have thought reached out to you to help them. My first couple months in this industry full time, I had a friend that I went to college with for 2 years, lives up in New England, lives in Connecticut. He gives me a call and he goes, "Hey, I have a friend of mine that I teach with at my school. She's looking to move down to Philadelphia. Do you think you could help her out?" She's talking to a random agent. She doesn't necessarily like him. I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely. Give me your number. I'll follow up with her." Well, it turns out that her and her husband are moving down to Philadelphia, and he's a surgeon and a doctor, and they're looking for $1 million place in Philadelphia. I'm like, well, wow, this is really nice. So, again, it's kind of one of those situations where you have no idea what's around the corner, and it could be something super fantastic. And on the other side of that, the tough part of the industry is the unknown, right? We just talked about, I just had 4 settlements in 6 days, and now I don't have anything on my pending board, and I'm freaking out. Now I know I have stuff coming down the line, but just the unknown, and that is a tough thing to kind of mentally get over, and just kind of, you have to know that things are going to come. It's just a matter of when, and to capitalize when they do. So the positive and the negative are almost the same thing of the unknown. There's going to be awesome things around the corner, and there's going to be some hard times. My manager, before he left, Justin Johnson, who I love him. He helped me tremendously. He always said to me, "Save your money. I know you're going to make X amount this month. Save it, because you don't know what's going to happen." It's the best advice you could have given me. Now, I'm a saver to begin with, so I was going to, but I mean, he's absolutely right. There's going to be ebbs and flows. There's going to be times where you're making great money, and there's going to be times where you come across hard times, and you want to make sure you have that reserve. But yeah, just the unknown is a positive and a negative all at the same time.
I think that's a fantastic answer. And you're right. I do feel like when you're in the business long enough, I've been in 15 years now. I've become to try. They say in baseball, right, for statistics in baseball, when you see someone who traditionally has a certain batting average, has a certain amount of RBIs, has a certain amount of home runs, and maybe they're struggling during the year, right? They say you check the stats on the back of the baseball card, right? Because at the end of the year, usually they're going to be right around where they were, and they have been traditionally, right? I feel like the same thing happens in real estate. I know in the beginning of the year, this year, I was kind of panicked because the first 3 months of the year, I had a very good year last year, and I came in with my marketing plan this year. I came in with my numbers plan, and I executed on everything I wanted to execute on. And then Omicron happened at the very beginning of the year. And I felt like I had clients holding off. I didn't have much going on, and I started to really worry how this year was going to shape up for me. But it all evens out, right? I'm having a great year since about April, right? But the first 3 months, you find yourself to be in a panic unless you say to yourself, it's going to be okay. The real estate gods will reward you for the effort and the time that you put in on your business. Get out of it what you put into it, kind of thing.
Throw in there every financial person in the world talking about a recession every single day, even though we're not technically in one. I mean, it's one of those economic climates. I found myself watching Squawk on the Street every single morning just to know what everybody else is listening to. I used to kind of drown that stuff out, but now that I know that my clients are going to be looking at all that stuff every day, being up to date on the financial situation of our country and the world it's a super important thing to kind of know where their mindset is, maybe where the fear is coming from, because we feel it ourselves. It's not that we're immune to it. I mean, we have mortgages, we have bills, we need to pay our stuff. So to pay attention to that stuff is definitely important. But yeah, I mean, I would say at the beginning of the year, I was a little panicked as well. And then there's a peak, and then there's a valley, and it's just trying to stay level-headed as much as you can through those times, whether it's high or low.
So, just an aside to that, how do you feel as a newer agent? And obviously the bulk of what you've done business-wise has come through this pandemic market, right? This super crazy hyper market that we've been in. You may not know anything different, or other new agents may not know anything different. And all of a sudden you hear that we're going to be in a market shift, right? The gloom and doom of a recession you had mentioned, all this different stuff. How has that affected your mindset? Like, what do you expect moving forward? How does that affect you as a newer agent?
I mean, I'd be lying to you if it didn't scare the hell out of me. I think everybody has a sense of fear, no matter what industry you're in. The amount of talk that's out there of struggles and the rate shift and all that stuff. What I have tried to do is, yes, the first year was 2.25 interest rates and basically free money, and so everybody that I ever spoke to, oh my God, what a great time to be in the business and blah, blah. Well, at the same time, yeah, it was a great time as far as interest rates is concerned, but I got 25 other buyers putting in bids with my buyers. Like I don't have seller clients. I don't have that repeat business yet. So it was a struggle in that sense. Now I worked through it, and, some clients are more receptive to what you need to do than others. So some were doing, the no inspections and waiving appraisals and all that stuff that they had to do to get one, and other ones that refused to do that. So you kind of had to get creative in what you were looking at and how to get it done. Like I have a couple clients that did VA loans. VA loans, were looked at as a negative by people. And I would say 5 years ago, it wasn't even a conversation. So to find the right houses for those people. So anyways, coming along to this financial market that we're in, I've basically just tried to put my nose down and, figure out how to get through it. This year has been much, much harder than last year. I have grinded way more than I did last year. Things came a little bit easier. But I find that as a positive. Now, if you're telling me that I can be successful in one of the easier markets, and now you're telling me this is a harder market and things are a little tighter, and I'm still successful, I actually wanted a shift to happen because I wanted to see, first off, what it was like and if I could get through it. So now I feel like I've become a much stronger agent because I've had to learn more. I've broadened my education. I've broadened, all my social media stuff, just as much as I can, absorbed as much as I can to be able to transition to any market. So I was actually somewhat looking forward to it. Not that I was excited for it, but that I was excited for the opportunity to learn from that as compared to a little bit of an easier market last year.
See, I don't think of things as necessarily being good or bad, right? Because for the reasons that you mentioned, right? Everybody says it was such a great market, but trying to find buyers a home in that market was brutal. I mean, Yep. Absolutely brutal. I think there are different markets, right? And there is opportunity in every single one because it doesn't stop. People need shelter, number one. People need to sell property for different reasons. It doesn't matter if it's the worst market in the world. Things happen in their life. They have to sell the home. People relocate. People die. People get sick. People have children. There's a million different reasons as to why they may want to move in any type of market. And I think that the mindset that we have to have as agents is that we're going to do this, right? It's not gloom and doom. It's just, what do we need to adjust in our business to remain successful, right? And I feel like I'm sensing that, with you. What do you feel like at this point that you need to get better at in your business to keep it growing?
That's a great question. I'm just so good at everything. No, I'm kidding. I don't know.
Honesty is what I like most about you, Jeff.
I would say, I don't know that I have the crispest listing presentation. I think that's something that I'd really like to work on. And, part of the reason is I just haven't had a ton of opportunity to do it. I'm the kind of person, I know you talked about scripts and stuff like that, and that works really well for some people. For me, it's throw me into the fire. Throw me into the fire and see if I can get through it. So, every single opportunity that I have, I learn a lot from each one. I mean, I can remember back to my first one and just kind of how pathetic it was as compared to now, where you walk in with a little bit more confidence, just load your brain with as many numbers and statistics and, again, walk around with a smile and talk about how much you love their property. And, it's something that will always be, evolving, in my opinion. But that's probably the one thing that I could work on the most. And it's definitely, I can see such a transition from last year. I think last year I had 4 or 5 total listings, and this year, I think I'm at 6 or 7, and I just had 5 listing appointments last week. So, you can see a transition as time goes on to getting a little bit more in depth with the clients and staying more relevant and having that stuff pop up, which will hopefully in turn make business a little better. But yeah, I would say listing presentation would be my number one.
I think that's a great answer because yes, it is. I remember back when I started, and just like most agents, you are going to have more you're going to be buyer heavy, right? And you may not get as many opportunities for listing appointments early in your career. And I think that's a great point, that you just have to do it. Number one, I feel like sometimes now I can go out on listing appointments and just be on autopilot because I know the objections. I know what people are going to say. I know how to handle them. And that comes through just with years of experience, right? Yep. And obviously you have to have a good listing presentation. I think for everyone out there listening, if you want to be taken seriously and you really want to win out on these listings, you really have to wow people. You get one opportunity to go out. You have to think things through and you have to make it really have a wow factor nowadays, especially with your listing presentation itself. So I think that's a great answer. And the last question I want to ask you today, I noticed that you very smartly, going back to your Instagram account, use your young daughter to promote some of your listings. All right. So that's a genius move because we all know children and pets is what sells online. Right. So Is it true that you decided to have children strictly for the lead gen? Is that?
Yeah, I had the foresight to think that I was going to get out of the car business and get into real estate. No, that is not the strict reason. Definitely one of them. But no, I've been blessed with two little girls who are absolutely adorable. My oldest, Addison, 5, she loves nothing more than to come out and work with me. And it's fun for me because first off, I can, it's almost like childcare where I can take her out and do it. But she just enjoys it so much. And that's one thing that I never really got from anyone else. I didn't see anybody else doing it. And I just kind of thought, you know what? I bet you someone would love to see my little 5-year-old adorable daughter walk through this house and describe things that she sees and the way that she sees it and the way that she says it. And it's taken off. I mean, the amount of feedback that I have got from those videos, and there's not necessarily just the listing stuff. I got, the award from, I was in President's Circle from Berkshire Hathaway. I brought it home and her face, I opened the box and oh my gosh, you won. It's just seeing her face so excited. She's a very competitive little girl. So if you win anything, she's all about it. But then I took a video of her holding it and just like the admiration that she had while holding it and describing me and how I won. And just, it's been a fun thing that's been also beneficial for my business. People really like it. It takes off. It's a nice niche, but at the same time for me, I love it because I get to involve her and have fun with her at the same time. So yeah, it's been a really fun thing that has taken off mightily, way more than I thought it was going to.
I'll tell you what, she's your secret weapon. I got to tell you right now, because I find every video that she's in one of your properties, I'm watching it,
Yeah,
and she does a great job. I'm telling you,
she's
by the
good.
time she's 8 years old, she's going to be polished. She's going to be like a child.
She's going to be on the Magnolia Network. That's
what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. She's got a future ahead of her. I'll tell you what,
Yeah. Well, everyone always jokes saying that I should give her some of my commission. I'm like, she gets all my commission. What do you mean? Like, that's all I spend my money on.
No, I think it was a great idea. You're right. I don't see people doing that. Right. And that's one of the things that we talk about, what separates you from other people. So, Jeff, before we get out of here, where can people find you? Like, what's your handle on Instagram, social media, all that stuff? Where can they follow you?
Yeah, Instagram is at Jeff Scott _realtor. Facebook's Jeff Scott Realtor. And that's really about it. I have a TikTok. I don't do a lot of TikTok. I'm more of an Instagram, Facebook. But yeah, Jeff Scott _realtor. Instagram's really where you want to see it because that's where you're going to see the most content and the most creative stuff that I'm able to do. Just because they have more avenues than Facebook. But yeah.
That's awesome, man. Well, this has been a lot of fun. I appreciate your insights. Much continued success to you in the business. And hopefully both of us will have another good month and we'll meet again at Breakfast of Champions one day soon.
Absolutely. I appreciate the opportunity. I feel like I'm a little underscored compared to the other people you've had on here, but hopefully there's a couple people that listen out there and can take a couple things from it.
Nah, this was great information. I thank you again for your time. And yeah, man, we'll catch up soon.
All right. Thank you very much.
That was the interview this week with Jeff Scott. Jeff had a lot of great information to share. Here are a couple takeaways from my conversation with Jeff. Number one, if you go to Jeff's Instagram page and you check out some of his video work and what he's done marketing-wise, you'll see that he has a comfort level in all that he does there, right in that space. Now, I know that many of you may not have that comfort level, at least not as of yet, but I encourage all of you to try because video is very, very important and is going to be even more important as we head into the future for your business, right? So think of it, if you're not doing video right now, that you need to practice doing video, get used to it, and make sure that you take the opportunity that's there to market yourself for free, because social media is a free space for all of us to advertise in, right? And if we do it creatively or we show our authenticity, it's going to get us business. So I know for many of you, it may seem overwhelming. It may seem tedious. I understand that, but you have to try and do it. And that is something that Jeff does extremely well, and it's vital for his business. Which leads me to point number two. Although Jeff has a very strong presence online and he does a great job there, that's not all he does with his marketing. He understands that he has to have something tangible or something to send people, something they can hold in their hands, right? So he does a magazine every other month to his client base. Or you may network, right? You're out there talking to people. You may hold open houses. You may join a club. You may join a business group. You have to reach what I call the 3 tiers of marketing, which is having a strong presence online. Supplement that with something that your clients can hold in their hands, whether it be postcards, mailers, magazines, you name it. And then also the 3rd tier, which is networking. You want to get out there voice to voice, face to face with people. And that's another thing that Jeff does very well for his business. And last but not least, I want to talk about the early success that Jeff has had. That doesn't mean that if you haven't reached that level of success within a year and a half full time in the business, that's okay, right? You just keep at it. You have to find what works for you. Jeff kind of found his secret sauce early in his career, and that's great for him, but that doesn't mean that you aren't going to find it soon for yourself. So if you're a younger agent out there, just keep doing what you're doing. Make sure that whatever you're doing, it's consistent in your business. So you have to find what works and then just keep hammering that, right? Do it consistently to get you business, to lead generate, and to make sure that you're successful in your real estate career. So keep at it and know that good things will come. Well, that's it for this week's episode. We will be back in another few weeks with a new topic, a new guest. And as always, if you want to hear something that we haven't covered yet, please reach out to me, jason.ostrowski@foxroach.com. And again, if you haven't liked and subscribed to the podcast or left us a review yet, please do so. It helps us to reach more people. This is Jason Ostrowski saying stay safe out there, stay selling, and we'll catch you on the next episode of the Everything Real Estate Podcast.